Hola, compañeros y compañeras. 'Tis I, Senor Tomat, bringing you news of crispness, freshness, mouth-watering juiciness. But coming to you first to address the heretics among you. I am joined by my faithful Tomatinos, here to tell you that Senor Tomat is no orange, and anyone who would speak such vile heresy should be hung by their toes until the blood runs to their head and they stop breathing. I am a Tomat. These are my Tomatinos. And we are the heralds of the Pessimist Productions Patreon, where you, yes, you, individually, you, yes, you, could be saving so much money while filling your belly with hot, steaming content. For $5, you get so much content, you will never, ever clean your plate. I promise. 'Tis I, Senor Tomat, saying, have a good show, and I will see you next week.
Yeah, Senor Tomat. Woo. That's what I'm talking about. So... What is this? Where's my fucking picture, you stupid sack of shit? There it is. I love when I have to reset shit. For the worst criminals and transgressors, there is only one punishment worthy of their horrible, hideous, evil crimes.
Death!
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 The sentence is
Kill them!
Death.
Fry them! Deep, fat, fry them! Ha 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 ha!
Deep fat of ride!
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Oh, it's a magical day in America, everybody.
You have a spleen?
It's a... What?
You said you're fucking it's a magical day. I said you have a spleen?
I have a spleen?
This man has a spleen!
We have an announcement, and I think people are probably already seeing what that announcement is. So those of you that have been pumped to hear the big news that we've been pimping the last couple of shows and stuff.
Oh, it's going to be great. You guys are going to love it. I mean it's already apparent.
It's already right in front of your eyes. We got new lighting for me and Scotty.
Yeah!
New lights. So we're
New
looking
lights. I mean, Scotty, you look
way
a little
better.
overexposed.
I think
maybe.
I thought we were going to announce Paul's
We're going to
faggotry.
adjust it. What's that?
I thought we were going to announce Paul's faggotry.
I announced that with my presence every moment that I'm alive.
Yeah, but I thought you were gonna make. I thought that was gonna be an official announcement, just to end all rumors, end all speculation.
I mean, people love it.
Just kidding. We didn't get new lights. We are, however, going to be doing the first.
Hold on.
Well, no. Okay.
Hold on,
Drum
Paul.
roll.
All right.
This is about the new lights, Paul. Quit fucking with them. Quit fucking with the people, man.
You quit fucking with them,
Quit
TJ.
fucking with the people, Paul.
Give the people the announcement they came for, TJ. Let them know the
Be
truth.
a harbinger of joy, TJ.
You do it. Why don't you do it?
Put Senor Tomat
No.
back up and let him do it.
You want Senor Tomat? We'll do the announcement.
We are the children of Tomat.
Hola. 'Tis I once again with a special announcement for everybody who is a fan of Deep Fat Friday. I, Senor Tomat, am here to tell you that the first annual Deep Fat Fried meetup will be happening in Los Angeles in the month of late July. You will hear soon where you can get tickets to see the most mind-blowing stage show that you've ever seen. Marshall Manson will be the opening act, and then the fellows of Deep Fat Fried, myself included, will come on to give you a stage show that will liquefy your balls in the sack. Do I need to say more? Must I continue to jabber on? No! Prepare yourself.
Wow.
Wow, dude.
Wow.
Amazing news, dude.
Amazing. I didn't even know that.
Tremendous news.
I didn't even know
We're
we were
going to
doing that.
Los Angeles, boys.
Yeah.
Going to L.A.
It's going to be a fucking rock and roll concert. Marshall Manson is going to melt everybody's fucking faces.
Melt their brains, too.
Melt their brains in their skull.
Skull fuck 'em to death.
I mean, then we're going to do a live Deep Fat Fried in front of the people, involving the people directly.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And
Audience
then
participation.
we're not going to do like normal fucking entertainers and rock stars do when the show's over, disappear into our limos and go to the after party that nobody's invited to. No. Everybody that comes is invited to the after party because it takes place right there. We're just going to come down off stage and get drunk and hang out with people.
There
all
will be
fucking night.
food. There
Till
will
they
be
kick
drink.
us out of this shit.
There will be merchandise. There will be entertainment. There will be everything that you've ever desired.
There will be
TJ will be
spectacles.
distributing hand jobs in the men's room all night long.
Double fisting.
Yeah!
It's going to be fucking amazing, dude.
You
It'd be
can't even
beautiful.
comprehend the true form of a DFF meetup. You can't even fucking motherfucking bitch.
So the tickets will be on sale soon, and we should
More
have all
announcements
the
to
details.
follow.
Clear your calendars in late July.
It will be in July. It will be in LA. It will be an amazing spectacle. 21 and up? Yes, I think so.
21 and up.
Because it's going to be drinky.
Drinky all day, all night.
We gonna drink. We gonna smoke. We gonna party like motherfucking 1986, bitch.
It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. So that's going to be happening soon. Further announcements to follow as specific details are made available to us. They will be made available to you.
And there are other big unrelated announcements on the near horizon.
Oh, yeah. We got more announcements.
I mean, you guys, like, the show is going through the metamorphosis of freshness.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So tonight we're here to talk about killing people for justice.
Capital
Yes.
punishment, the death
Yeah.
penalty.
Murder people by the state.
Why had the state just murder you, TJ?
I don't know.
The state has found you to be obsolete.
Maybe they will. You never know. You never know what the state will do.
You know who's fucking found you to be obsolete, TJ? Thanos, bitch.
Oh, shit.
Bye-bye.
How did I not even notice that shirt? That's a dope fucking shirt. God damn.
Scotty's all stars now.
Scotty's on
with the
swag
dope
status
shirt.
tonight.
Scotty's
Legit
swagging.
made me jealous about a shirt.
Scotty's swagging.
Scotty's not playing
Dildo
today.
swaggins
Not
up
fucking
in here.
playing. Well, this seemed like the appropriate shirt for an episode about something to do with death.
It won't, sure.
So you guys want to get into the topic of the night,
I think we should.
or you want to just bullshit all night? We can just bullshit.
We can just bullshit.
The
all night if
bullshit
you want.
episode.
I mean, you know, Paul did a lot of research. Scotty did some research. I didn't do any research.
You
bullshit
just showed up.
episode.
I did not.
That's
I
like
actually-
almost every
Well,
episode,
you know,
TJ.
I actually
TJ's
had some
defense.
stuff that I wanted to pull, but Paul pulled so fucking much that I was like, well, I get.
Be your own man, TJ. Just because Paul did something, you can't fucking. Maybe there's something you would have pulled that Paul never would have thought
I
of.
mean, you wouldn't. I mean, like the amount of tabs on this browser
insane.
window open is.
I mean, there's a lot of shit to talk about here. And I
crazy.
found that when I went looking,
Yeah.
that the things that really got me was just a long list of shit that we've done to kill people.
Oh yeah.
Oh God,
And
yeah.
There's no way we could spend 2 shows just covering like how people have been executed in the past. So I tried to pick some of the biggest, most widespread ones, going all the way back to the beginning.
Fucking ancient human history, dude. Going
So
back
we
to
can
where it
see how
fucking
we're doing,
started.
you know,
The cradle of civilization.
but yeah, in TJ's defense, he couldn't pull anything because he was busy breaking his fucking microphone.
Did you pull
Yeah.
the 2001 Space Odyssey, taking the fucking bone and dun dun dun?
No, I should have though, because that was
Wow.
probably the first death penalty.
So for those of you out there too stupid to know what the death penalty is, here's just a real brief description. Capital punishment, also known as the death penalty, is a government-sanctioned practice whereby a person is put to death by the state as a punishment for a crime. The sentence that someone be punished in such a manner is referred to as a death sentence, whereas the act of carrying out the sentence is known as an execution. Crimes that are punishable by death are known as capital crimes or capital offenses, and they commonly include offenses such as murder, treason, espionage, war crimes, crimes against humanity, and genocide. Etymologically, The term capital means of the head. It's derived from Latin capitalis, from caput, head. In the context alluded to, they're basically talking about beheading people.
Yeah.
But not beheading in the sense of giving them a blowjob like I discussed in my video. Beheading is in chopping off their fucking head.
Right.
56 countries retain capital punishment. 103 countries have completely abolished it.
Pussies.
For all crimes, and 6 have abolished it for ordinary crimes while maintaining it for special circumstances such as war crimes. And 30 are abolitionist in practice. I don't know what that means. I guess that means they still technically have the right to do the death penalty. They just don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy. I would have thought that the number of countries that do it would have outnumbered the ones that don't.
Nope.
But actually, most countries are kind of like, no, we don't want to. We don't want the state executing people.
Yeah, well, because there's so many fucking giant glaring problems with it that I'm sure we'll get to tonight. It's kind of a shameful thing that other countries like the United States haven't come to the same kind of conclusion that maybe this ain't the best way to go about things. But we'll talk about that as we go.
Yeah.
When it comes to being killed for a transgression, I mean, certainly the first instance of that predates humans. I mean, we see our, distant cousins, chimps and shit doing shit like that, where somebody fucks up, they get beaten to death by the troop. But we're talking about justice here. We're talking about there being an established code of law, and the state itself is the one that's prosecuting it.
Yeah, the state carries out the execution.
And that started with Hammurabi and the code of Hammurabi, right?
Well, it says that there's some ancient laws of China that actually predate the code of Hammurabi. But that is a very early example of the death penalty. It was the 18th century BC. So we're talking 4,000 years ago, basically. Right. Hammurabi of Babylon.
Yeah, the Babylonians.
Sounds like a good YouTube channel.
I've seen that they kind of like tablets, these words, cylindrical tablets. They write the shit on too.
Didn't you actually see some of the code of Hammurabi?
Yeah,
Scotty?
I did at a museum.
I pulled a picture of it as well. We can
it's cool. Yeah, it's definitely cool to look at. You can kind of look.
I got a picture here of what
how
it looks
people
like.
used to write because this predates the Phoenician alphabet. Yeah,
this
it's
is,
really.
This is what it looks like. It actually prescribed the death penalty for 25 different crimes, but murder was not one of them.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. Murder was not included as something punishable for the death penalty. It's just,
the first death sentence historically recorded occurred in 16th century BC Egypt, where the wrongdoer, a member of nobility, was accused of magic.
Yeah, you
in order to take his own life.
See where the priorities of our ancestors were. Murder, witchcraft, though?
Did some magic, kill him.
Well, because
is this your card? Ah, sorcerer!
Because a lot of stuff was tribal, so it was a blood feud. So you could actually give someone up or pay people money and say, "Oh, I killed your sons, but I'm going to give you a bunch of gold and sheep and some other bullshit." You know what I mean?
In the 14th century BC, there was also the Hittite Code, which also prescribed the death penalty. The 7th century BC Draconian Code of Athens made the death penalty for every crime committed.
Yeah.
Which is the origin of draconian laws. When someone says something is draconian, that's the basis.
Yeah, so basically, anything, you broke the law, you die.
The thinking behind that was if you make a severe punishment standard, then people will just stop breaking the law.
Doesn't really work.
Doesn't work that way, but...
Doesn't actually work, interestingly enough.
I actually pulled an article that has some of the code of Hammurabi translated so that we can read some of the crimes.
Yeah, let's take a look. I think I can pull it up. Kind of getting out of order here, but that's okay.
Oh, there's other ones before that?
There was because both you and Scotty pulled some stuff that kind of had to be amalgamated together a little bit.
Yeah.
But that's okay. We can get to the Middle Ages, which is one of the first things Scotty pulled, comes after the Code of Hammurabi anyway, so...
Yeah, far after.
Let's just take a look at some of this code. So here's some of the laws. Slander. If anyone point the finger at a sister of a god or the wife of anyone and cannot prove it, this man shall be taken before the judges, and his brow shall be marked by cutting the skin or perhaps hair.
So this wasn't even death.
No, it was just slander, whatever. Trade, okay. If a herdsman to whose cattle or sheep have been entrusted be guilty of fraud or makes false returns of the natural increase or sell them for money, then shall he be convicted and pay the owner 10 times the loss.
Damn, dude.
That's pretty fucking hardcore there.
I mean, whatever. It's tough, but it's fair.
Now here's one that actually does incur a death sentence.
The next one.
Yep.
If anyone take a male or female slave of the court or a male or female slave of a freed man outside the city gates, he shall be put to death.
Don't take him outside the city.
Yeah, so taking my slaves, man, they were real protective of that.
Don't steal my slaves. The duties of workers. If anyone take over a field to till it and obtain no harvest therefrom, it must be proved that he did no work on the field, and he must deliver grain just as his neighbor raised to the owner of the field. All right, whatever. This is theft. If anyone is committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death.
That's pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
You were caught stealing shit, you die.
Yep.
You got caught stealing, you're dead. You die.
Scroll down, and it says one of the best known laws from Hammurabi's code.
If a man destroy the eye of another man, then they shall destroy his eye. If one man breaks a man's bone, they shall break his bone. If one destroy the eye of a free man, or break the bone of a free man, he shall pay 1 gold mina. If one destroy the eye of a man's slave, or break a bone of a man's slave, he shall pay 1/2 his price. Damn.
So that was
you
kind
gotta
of
pay
like
you gotta pay
eye
half
for an
the
eye, tooth
Dude.
for a tooth.
You gotta pay half the price of a slave if you fuck a slave up.
Hammurabi had many other punishments as well. If a son strikes his father, his hand shall be hewn off.
Translations vary.
Damn.
Fuck, dude.
So pretty harsh.
Oh, what's the adultery one? If the wife of a man has been caught lying with another man, they shall bind them and throw them into the
That's
water.
death.
That's death.
If the owner of the wife would save his wife, then in turn the king could save his servant. Okay. So Hammurabi was a pretty hardcore son of a bitch,
Yes.
But I guess they do credit him for bringing law and order to into a codified sort of code, because prior to that it was just kind of like
Regional and by word of mouth.
And whenever the nobility of the
whatever
area,
the mob or the nobles or whatever,
Yeah, whoever
fucking
was in
thought
charge.
was the justice was what happened.
yeah.
So he actually brought laws into a system that was codified and written down and conceivably understandable to people. Seems like a lot of his laws were a little bit harsh, but whatever. It's ancient times. People were a little different back then. So we got this Middle Age execution. This is execution in Middle Ages. It goes through a few of the methods, which we're going to get way deeper into detail of, but this is maybe a good little overview for some of these executions, and some of them are not even addressed, but we're going to go deeper into some of these. So these are the most common types of a medieval execution. So beheading, which they say, believe it or not, beheading was deemed as one of the most honorable and least painful ways to be executed in the Middle Ages.
I mean, yeah.
It
If
really
a
was.
sharp enough
It
axe
probably
was
still
used.
is.
When you see the other death sentences, you'll understand why.
Well, yeah. If a sharp enough axe was used, a person could be decapitated with one swift blow, allowing for an instantaneous death. Well, not necessarily, because there's actually some evidence that you retain consciousness for a little while.
Yeah, I
But,
pulled some stuff about that.
Because of this, beheading was often reserved for nobles, knights, and even royalty. So here's some of the more common ones that weren't for the more...
One thing to keep in mind too is this was all usually done in front of a fucking crowd.
Yeah, this was a public
And
spectacle.
also, what you skipped over too is that basically prisoners had no rights. It was like you're guilty, you've basically been found guilty automatically, and you're going to be killed. And it's just now they're going to prescribe the way you're going to be
Go
killed.
figure due process wasn't a fucking thing.
No, not really.
Hung, strung, and quartered, perhaps the most brutal of all execution methods, traditionally given to anyone found guilty of high treason. The culprit would be hung and just seconds before death released, then disemboweled, and their organs were thrown into a fire,
Fuck,
all while
dude.
still alive. Once dead, they would be cut into 4 pieces and traditionally have their body parts sent to 4 parts of the city as a public warning to others. Just let you know, don't commit high treason. Burned at the stake. That's a fun one. common execution, often given to people believed to be heretics or witches. We know what burning at the stake is. You're strapped to a wooden stake and you're lit on fire.
Kind of self-explanatory.
Crushing.
Whoa,
That's
dude.
kind of neat. Used both as torture and for execution, medieval crushing involved placing the accused's head in a device that slowly crushed the top and sides of their head together. Eventually, their eyes would pop out, skull would crack, and the neck would break. That sounds not fun.
Wonderful.
Boiling to death.
Yeah, wow.
Boiling to death was usually reserved for poisoners, coin forgers, and counterfeiters.
That's kind of a weird grouping.
I get poisoners a little, but coin forgers and counterfeiters, okay, seems a little harsh. It involved being flung into a cauldron of boiling water or oil, and the accused would slowly scald to death. That seems kind of mean. I don't know.
You kind of get cooked, dude.
Impalement. As the name suggests, medieval impalement meant to be impaled or stuck through a large, sharp object such as a metal spear or pole and left to die.
I mean, if we're gonna go through each one of these, because I pulled stuff for all of them, why don't you just go through them all? Because it's like we're doing it once and then we're gonna do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I figure this is just give them that little overview of the things we're going to talk about, because we got, obviously, there's way more description there.
Okay.
I mean, hanging, everyone knows what hanging is.
Yeah.
That's just basically they put a rope around your neck and hang you till you die.
Yeah. Stuff, a lot of times
Or
it's
your
about
neck.
breaking your neck.
Yeah, you break
too.
your neck and die, but yeah.
The wheel involved victims' limbs gradually being broken while strapped to a wheel and then left to die. Sawing, which is they're hung upside down and sawed in half, basically. And crucifixion, which that's so ingrained in our culture due to Christianity that I don't think I need to explain that to anybody.
It's actually a pretty complex way to die, though. It's not just exposure like a lot of people think it is.
I think it constricts your chest and all kinds of stuff,
Constricts your
right?
breathing. It rearranges your internal organs in a way that makes them not function properly. It causes fluid to build up in parts of your body where it shouldn't be, because big abscesses where your organs should be are there. It's just a horrible fucking way to die.
Let's take a closer look at some of these execution methods. We're going to start with death by boiling.
This one has got to be one of the worst ways to
Oh,
die.
dude, easily.
Because, I mean, you're going to just be in agony for minutes.
Shouldn't have forged those coins. And
it's not just that was in medieval times. This is a very old method of punishment. I think I pulled a picture of a Japanese man being boiled alive.
Yeah, this is kind of a fun.
Well, you should have thought about that before you did some fucked up shit, Paul.
Yeah, this was, I think, a
is
traitor.
This is a Japanese dude. He's holding a woman. I don't know what that's about. And he's, boiling. He doesn't look too happy. He looks like he's taking it better than most people would, though.
Trying to hold her up, trying to survive as long as you can. Then I guess she boils alive with him.
Maybe just toss her away so she doesn't.
Probably,
fall down.
maybe she's tied to him, dude.
Yeah, I think he, in reading about this, he was a partisan and a traitor. So this was he and his wife were thrown into the boiling water.
And he's trying to save her.
Right.
For as long as
he's
he
trying
can.
to hold her up, away from the boiling. But of course, eventually he's going to die, and she goes in as well.
Damn, brutal. Death by boiling.
Boiled in soup of her own husband.
That's a method of execution in which a person is killed by being immersed in a boiling liquid. No shit. While not as common as other methods of execution, boiling to death has been used in many parts of Europe and Asia. Executions of this type were carried out using a large vessel such as a cauldron or a sealed kettle. It was filled with liquids such as water, oil, tar, or tallow. What the fuck is tallow?
Like it's just rendered fat.
Oh, okay.
So it would just turn into boiling oil.
Sometimes
my
they use a
God,
hook
dude.
and pulley system.
So they would lower them into it slowly. Fuck, man.
Not
Can you
fun.
imagine that, looking at some boiling fucking cauldron, dude, and be like, fuck, I'm about to be boiled alive.
Man, that is...
Imagine it was your head, too. Like, with your feet, you could at least be like, oh, this is going to hurt, but your head, imagine just the... Ugh.
I mean, well, think about, like, if they started with your feet and just boiled them for a few minutes, then lowered your legs in, boiled that for a few minutes. I mean, like, that'd be horrible. Like you just die. I mean, like, 'cause you wouldn't die from those injuries until your like internal organs start to be infected.
Dude.
So
Fuck, dude.
So they said in England in the ninth statute passed in 1531, which was during the reign of Henry VIII, made boiling the prescriptive form of capital punishment for murder committed by poisoning. This was after the Bishop of Rochester's cook, Richard Roos, gave several people poisoned porridge, resulting in 2 deaths in February of 1530.
No.
got himself boiled in some.
Come on,
porridge,
Dick.
probably.
He was tortured, and they tortured a confession out of him, and then he was sentenced. Here's a chronicle of what he went through by a witness as he was being boiled. He roared mighty loud, and
Oh, no shit.
divers women who were big with child did feel sick at the sight of what they saw and were carried away half dead. And the other men and women did not seem frightened by the boiling alive, but would prefer to see a headsman at his work. So they're just kind of like, yeah, I'd rather just
see
this
him
dude.
beheaded.
Yeah,
his head cut
honestly, what
off.
they're saying is for the time, like, it's even gruesome by our standards.
I mean, they were saying that like pregnant women found it hard to look at, but everybody else was pretty much just like, all right, whatever.
well,
I'd rather be seeing a beheading. I mean, it just kind of shows you how brutal those times were and how much brutality people were using.
I think
There
they
was
wanted
a-
that. I think they wanted they wanted to see the blood, dude. They wanted that fucking bam, you're fucking dead. But
Yeah.
but like you said, that was kind of reserved for the nobility and royalty and shit. And this guy was a cook, so I doubt he was any of that. So he probably would have just been drawn and quartered or some shit.
In 1542, there was a woman named Margaret Davy who also was a poisoner. She was boiled alive as well. In a
That's
an
the penalty.
accused poisoner, because in
Yeah.
both of these cases, a confession was tortured out of the person.
Well,
so
yeah,
I
we
mean,
all know how reliable
these people
those
didn't.
types-
These people didn't get anything like a fair trial.
No.
So.
Fuck no, dude. It was you're accused, you're tortured, and you confess.
In 1547, the act was repealed. So I guess even they were kind of like, this boiling people alive thing is a little. Yeah, I'm not too sure about this one. Let's just keep chopping their heads
Let's just
off.
cut their heads off.
Seems more reasonable. So in Asia, this is the backstory, I guess, for the picture we were looking at
Okay.
earlier. 16th century Japan, a semi-legendary Japanese bandit,
Oh, he's a bandit. Cool.
Ishikawa Gomen, was boiled alive in a large iron kettle-shaped bathtub. His public execution, which might have included his entire family, was done after he failed to kill warlord Toyotomi Hideyoshi. So in 1675, a Sikh martyr, this is a different story, called Ba Dayala,
Yep.
was boiled alive in Delhi after he refused to accept Islam. That still happens. He was put into a cauldron full of cold water, which was then heated to boiling point. That seems better than being just dropped right into the boiling
Yeah,
point.
No, not for me. I mean, like, honestly, dude, think about that. You'd have time to sit there and feel it get warmer and warmer and warmer. I mean, like, it's the slow death.
Yeah, but
dude.
you get to adjust a little, you know? It's like they talk about the frog in the
There ain't no
boiling water,
adjusting
you know?
You get to
boiling
adjust,
water.
TJ. So it's like I can tolerate this. It's kind of getting warm. I'm buried alive. You know, it's just getting hotter and hotter until it's like just boiling. Your skin is just melting off of you.
Better than
dude.
just being thrown right in the boiling water.
You'd
That's
think it'd
quicker.
be quicker to die that way because
It'd be
the
quicker.
damage is done. Yeah,
But yeah,
quicker. Yeah, I'm all about quicker when it comes to this type of painful shit. I don't want to sit there and slowly let the water fucking heat up. Fuck that.
I mean, it's just another moment
You
of
really
contemplation.
fucking. So you would choose the slow one.
I mean, it's not really that much slower.
Yes, it is because you have to wait.
Yeah, it's gonna take like 30
you gotta
It's a
minutes
huge-
for the big old
yeah.
cauldron
You're going to have to
heat up.
wait anyway. You might as well give
No.
yourself a chance to adjust a little.
What?
Dude,
Yeah.
if you're lower than you probably have like a couple minutes and then you're dead.
Right, but you're gonna sit in that cauldron for 45 minutes the other way. At least. I mean, it's gonna take a long ass time for
For
that
a
cauldron
big ass
of water
fucking
to
pot of
boil.
water to boil, dude. Oh yeah, for a cauldron to boil, it's gonna take a long ass time.
I don't know, man.
You're crazy.
Depictions
TJ.
in Western culture. The early reports of cannibals from islands in the Pacific, such as Fiji and Papua New Guinea, killing Western Christian missionaries, were assumed to involve some form of boiling alive. This became a fertile ground for filmmakers and especially cartoonists whose cliched depictions of tourists and missionaries sitting restrained in a large cauldron above a wood fire and surrounded by bone-nosed tribesmen was a staple of popular magazines and film for decades. We've all seen the cartoons.
Yeah, they were always tied up in there, and then like they'd be cutting up potatoes and carrots in there with them and shit.
Yeah, and there'd be like some kind of witty quip or caption down at the bottom. So... yeah, it's pretty fucking crazy. This is there's actually a modern times section of this too.
Wow.
The government of Uzbekistan under Islam Karimov has been alleged to have boiled suspected terrorists. In a 2004 document from the U.S. Department of State, the following is written. During the year, there were no developments or investigations in the following 2002 deaths in custody. I'm not even going to try to pronounce these two names. They're really complicated Muslim-sounding names. They were members of Hizb-ut-Tahrir, who were tortured to death in Yasilisk prison in Karakap, resulting in extensive bruises and burns, the latter reportedly caused by immersion in boiling water.
Wow.
So neat. Still being used.
Still happening.
At least in Islamic countries, it's still happening a little bit.
Cool.
So that's good to know.
You're fucking racist, TJ.
What?
You're racist, dude.
I'm racist because I talked about that.
Islamic countries, dude. Of course, you had to point out that it's happening in Islamic countries.
So, Paul, you were talking a little bit earlier about how people die in a crucifixion. Obviously, people understand a lot about crucifixion.
Yeah.
Yeah, you get nailed to a fucking cross, dude.
But here's how
doesn't feel good.
Here's how you actually die when you're on the cross. The length of time required to reach death. Let me see if I have a picture of a crucifixion here we can pull up. Yeah, we do. I'm going to go ahead and put this up here.
Why don't you pull up our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ? Oh, no, this isn't it.
Yeah, that's him.
That's him.
Oh, it is
there
Jesus?
He is.
Oh, there he is.
Get in there.
Oh, thank God.
The length of time required to reach death could range from hours to days, depending on the method, the victim's health, and the environment. A literature review by Maslin and Mitchell identified scholarly support for several possible causes of death. So there's many ways you could die on the cross.
Yep.
You could die of cardiac rupture, heart failure,
damn, dude,
hypovolemic shock, acidosis, asphyxia, arrhythmia, and pulmonary embolism. Neat. Death could result from any combination of those factors or from other causes, including sepsis, following infection due to the wounds caused by the nails or the scourging that often preceded crucifixion. You could die of dehydration. You could die of animal predation, so basically like birds and shit coming and pecking you to death. I think Conan had the best answer to that. A theory attributed to Pierre Barbet holds that when the whole body weight was supported by the stretched arms, the typical cause of death was asphyxiation. He wrote that the condemned would have severe difficulty inhaling due to hyperexpansion of the chest, muscles, and lungs. The condemned would therefore have to draw himself up by the arms, leading to exhaustion, or have his feet supported by tying or by a wood block when no longer able to lift himself. The condemned would die within a few minutes. Some scholars, including Frederick Zagubi, funny name, posit other causes of death. Zagubi suspended test subjects with their arms at a 60 to 70 degree angle from the vertical. The test subjects had no difficulty breathing during experiments, but did suffer rapidly increasing pain, which is consistent with the Roman use of crucifixion to achieve a prolonged, agonizing death. However, Zagubi's positioning of the test subjects' feet are not supported by any archaeological or historical evidence.
So he didn't really do it right as far as the support at the bottom.
Right. So,
I mean, like anything else, it's hard to really know what exactly the method.
Obviously,
that was used,
we're not going to be like, let's just crucify someone and see how this
crucify like
kills
5
them.
people 5 different ways. And let's figure it out.
In that picture that you had up, though, it shows the 2 poses of somebody trying to get a breath when they're crucified in that way. So they hang, allowing their body weight to be supported by the nails in their hands and feet. But that constricts their chest to the point where they can't breathe, so they have to do kind of a pull-up to get a breath. I mean, you can just imagine how quickly that would be
Yeah, you'd be dead. Yeah.
Especially when you're pulling yourself up by a giant iron nail through your hand. You know what I mean? Like, just the immense pain involved in doing anything.
It's almost like choose your death at that point.
Right, suffocate. And I mean, nobody can, like, willingly suffocate themselves to death. I mean, like, your natural instincts for survival kick in and you start looking for a way to breathe. And when the only way to do that is to do another painful-ass pull-up, you do it.
Speaking of not breathing, execution by drowning. Drowning as a method of execution is attested very early in human history for a large variety of cultures. So, bunch of different human cultures all got the same bright idea. Let's drown people.
Yeah,
drown them.
You put someone in a sack and throw them in the fucking river, dude.
And it's kind of interesting. It says here in a variety of cultures, there was taboos against shedding the blood of royals, you know? Mm-hmm. And in many cultures, when the execution of a king or members of royal family was thought necessary, they were drowned to avoid spilling their blood. In Cambodia, for example, drowning was the type of execution reserved for members of the royal family. Here's a guy named Felix Carey describing it in 1806. When a person of royal extraction is to receive capital punishment, it is generally done by drowning. In the first place, that person is tied hands and feet, then sewn up in a red bag, which again is sometimes put into a jar, and thus the prisoner is lowered into the water with a weight sufficient to sink him. This practice is resorted to because it is reckoned a sin to spill royal blood. Damn.
So it's kind of taboo to spill the blood of the royals, so they just... I'd rather be beheaded, spill my blood.
Yeah, no lie, dude.
Chop my fucking head off. I don't want to drown.
You'll be drowned. Well, that's better.
African cultures used it. Islamic cultures used it. Eastern Asian cultures used it. Says here, a strange case of revoking the penalty of drowning for a woman who had killed her child occurred in Nuremberg in 1525. The executioner said he was willing to marry Gertrude Butner if her life was spared, and authorities granted her reprieve. So wait.
What?
Wow, the executioner fell in love with her.
He's like, damn, I want to bone this chick, dude.
He's like, man, this bitch is fine.
Yeah.
Hey, guys. I'm willing to marry this bitch if you don't... I mean, like, if I don't have to kill her, could I just marry her? And they're like, you've always been a good executioner, sure.
Yeah. Fair enough. Go for it.
You've never really complained. We'll give this to you.
Maybe he was just a dude that never wanted kids. He was like, dude, this is the perfect woman for me. She'll just kill any kids that come along. It's great deal.
Fuck, dude.
Dissolution of the practice, I guess, in Europe, some cases regarded as the last instances of drowning occurred during the latter half of the 16th century. The reported cases in Eslington and Württemberg, for example, occurred in 1589 and 1593, respectively. So, we stopped using it in the 16th century. Not Western culture, anyway.
Yeah, Western culture did. There's actually a very recent example of this being used still. I pulled a picture of it.
It says in Russia it was more like the 18th century. But yeah, Paul actually did pull an interesting picture. Guess who's still executing people by this method?
I don't know.
I wonder, dude.
So this might come as a shock, but this is a screenshot from an ISIS video that was released. I know, involving.
I can't believe ISIS would do that.
I thought this was a video of some people in Norway or something, dude.
No, this is definitely ISIS using a big cage lowered by a crane into the water to drown men. So, yep, still happening. People still being put to death in this way in parts of the world. I had a hard time finding the video that this came from. I wanted to verify it, so this might be fake news.
Fake news.
But it doesn't look
ISIS.
like fake news.
I know ISIS, and ISIS would never do that.
Dude, ISIS has always been known for their generosity and benevolence. So
they're just deep sea diving, and that cage is to protect them from sharks.
Yeah, and they just don't have any diving equipment on because they're skin divers. They're breath divers. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, they're going to lift them up plenty of times.
Yeah.
They go down for a minute, they lift them back up, they'll be fine.
Down, up, down, up, down, up. It's
if they did die,
it's like a ride. It's like a ride.
The crane probably got stuck on the down, and they was probably like, "Oh, lift him up, lift him up, lift him up." Couldn't do it. They died.
So here's another method of execution that I know is being used by ISIS. falling.
Oh,
Or
shit. Being thrown.
being thrown off a fucking big high thing, you know.
Like a cliff or a...
Tossed off
really
a
old
building,
one.
tossed off a cliff, whatever. Tossed off something really high up. Throwing or dropping people from great heights has been used as a form of execution since ancient times. People executed in this way die. Well, of course we know how they die.
Obviously.
I mean, they're flung off a fucking really high
everyone
thing.
remembers
They smash into the ground.
like the Spartan thing, you know what I mean? They're going to keep the baby or drop the baby like, off the cliff, you know what I mean?
Yep. I don't know if that actually ever
Yeah,
happened,
but we've all heard of the myth, at least,
course.
of it.
Yeah, there were Delphi. There was a trial at Delphi where someone was thrown off.
Yeah, some sacrilegious person was hurled from the top of Hyampia.
Yep.
Should have done it.
The high crag of the... Man, this episode has a lot of fucking difficult words. Phaedriads to the east of the Castellinian Spring. That's fun. In pre-Roman Sardinia, elderly people who were unable to support themselves were ritually killed.
There you go.
That's a great example.
Hey, Pops.
Society coming up with a
can't take care of
creative idea to get rid of some dead weight. It's
And
like,
you know
look,
what?
Hey, they say nursing homes are fucked up. The Sardinians know how to fucking deal with old people. Look,
Yep.
Look, and here's the thing.
can't walk anymore. Pfft.
They intoxicated them first. They got them drunk with a neurotoxic plant known as the sardonic herb.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
so
like
that's-
some sardonic herb.
Yeah, it sounds fun. And then they were dropped from a big high rock or beaten to death,
That's awesome.
All right, old man. You feeling drunk yet? Feeling fucked up? Well, I feel nothing, man. All right, cool. Boom, boom, boom. You're dead.
Yeah, you're dead now.
Next.
Awesome.
During the Roman Republic, the Tarpeian Rock. Tarpeian Rock, a steep cliff at the southern summit of the Capitoline.
Capitoline?
Capitoline? Yeah. Capitoline Hill was used for public executions. It was mostly for murderers and traitors. They were flung off, they were just flung off the cliff to their deaths. I mean, that's pretty fucking nice for the Romans,
Assuming that it's high enough and that you don't survive
compared to,
the fall.
compared to fucking crucifixion, it seems
I'd
pretty
take
nice.
death of falling over almost any of these. I mean, there's a reason why people jump off of high things to kill themselves.
Yeah, it's like, boom.
Yep.
Whee!
Yeah,
It's like a few moments of euphoria as you fall, and then lights out.
In 2015, members of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant executed men who were accused of being gay by pushing them off of towers. That's the
Fair
course,
enough.
contemporary thing.
You're a faggot. Die.
You like dick? Well, let's see you fucking die. Woo! Throw them off a cliff. Throw them off a building.
You're a fairy. Let's see if you can fly.
So here's a little video Paul pulled. This is called That Time When You Could Save Yourself from Being Executed by Beating the Executioner in a Foot Race.
Oh, yeah, this is kind of a funny little... I didn't know where to put this, but this
Well,
is kind of an interesting
We'll use it
little-
here as a little breakup.
Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching the Today I Found Her YouTube channel. And in the video today, we're looking at that time you could save yourself from being executed by beating the
You gonna put it
executioner
up on the
in a
screen?
foot race.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. That's not it.
Like many historical nations, the Ottoman Empire was no stranger
There we
to
go.
doling out deadly justice to criminals and those the rulers disliked. Unlike most, for several decades, starting sometime in the late 18th century, they did offer some of the condemned a chance to avoid being executed. How? Well, they simply had to beat the palace's head gardener in what amounted to a 300-meter dash. In the
Sweet.
Ottoman Empire, the method
Damn,
in
that's
which
pretty
people
cool,
eventually
dude.
came to be
That seems
executed
fair.
was directly related to their standing in
Right, you
society,
fucked up.
as
Beat the
well
gardener
as
in a
differing
fucking
based
foot
on
race,
their sex.
dude.
For example, commoners who didn't necessarily commit a heinous enough crime to warrant one of the more painful forms of execution favored by the Ottomans, like being inhaled or being hung by a jagged meter
Inhaled?
until dead.
Wait a minute.
What is that?
I think he meant to say impaled, but
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm pretty sure you meant
but
impaled.
but
Being
maybe
inhaled. The giant nose will see you now.
Holy shit, man, that's horrible.
No! You get to fucking drown in boogers.
Inhaled.
would simply have their heads lopped off. In contrast, higher-ranking individuals, such as high-ranking ministers and royalty, were often strangled to death by either the executioner's bare hands, the string of a bow, or even a silk handkerchief. Once dead, the body was often cast into the sea. As for the ladies, for certain condemned high-ranking women, their fate tended to be being tied up in weighted sacks and dropped into the sea while still alive. Although being beheaded would arguably be quicker and perhaps a little less emotionally traumatic during the actual event, a bloodless death was seen as being cleaner and more refined, so preferable by the elite.
More refined.
Numerous executions in the Ottoman Empire, whether they involved commoners or the Sultan's own family, took place in the Topkapi Palace in modern-day Istanbul. This opulent residence served as the main home of the Sultan and was
At least you get to be killed somewhere nice, you know?
Yeah, you get to go on a nice little vacation.
Look at that fucking view, dude.
I know, beautiful little
It's almost
seaside
worth
villa.
it. It's almost worth it.
Yeah.
You're a commoner. You're like, you know what? I want to see the inside of the palace. Do you just fucking you off somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it's
you
probably
kill
like,
them, and then
it kind of sucks that if you're like a commoner that does some fucked up shit and they bring you to this palace for execution, it's probably the nicest place you've ever been in your life.
Well, think about that.
To go get killed.
You get to kill your fucking biggest arch rival, or whatever. You fucking hate the dude across the street. You kill him. They catch you. You get a fucking tour of the palace. You get to fucking see what's what, and they kill you.
Yeah, it's a nice little ocean breeze coming off the water there, you know?
It's a little vacation.
Just a pleasant way to go.
with grim reminders of the potential cost of crime or dissent, with severed heads of recently killed criminals being on
Well, you're
display
dead, who
at the
cares?
palace's front gate, along with piles of other severed body parts like noses, ears, and tongues.
Kind of takes away from the vacation sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're walking past piles of tongues and eyeballs and shit, yeah, it
like,
kind of ruins the idyllic nature of visiting the palace.
But that's on the outside. You're going to be inside the palace.
Right.
You know, so you'll be all right.
Criminals to be executed on palace grounds were only made aware of their fate on the day they were meant to be executed via means
see, there
of
you go.
a sweetened drink.
I mean, that's kind of better, right? You know.
You're just chilling at the
yeah, you don't
palace,
have
and
to
it's
worry
like,
about it for
Yeah, you don't
6
have like
months.
days and days of dread waiting.
it's just like,
oh man.
you know, you wake up and it's like, hey, Paul, we're going to execute you.
Yep, today's your day. You're dying today. It's like, all right,
Well, fuck.
Made with sherbet. The accused would customarily be presented with this drink 3 days after appearing in court. The colour of the drink would be indicative of the court's decision. As Professor Godfrey Goodwin of
That's a weird way to let
Yeah.
someone know.
you give them a goblet, and it's like, if it's red in there, you're dead, and if it's blue, you're okay. You get to leave.
Yeah, the color of your drink will be how we let you
Seems
know
like
your
a reality
sentence.
show they have today. It's like, will you be executed? And
Well,
T-Day reveals, red, he will be executed live in front of
it.
a live studio audience.
Beachy University noted, if it were white, he sighed with relief, but if it were red, he was in despair, because red
Oh,
is
shit.
the colour of death.
Oh, we were
Despite the
close.
vast number of executions that took place in the Sultan's palace, for reference, during the brief 8-year 16th century reign of Sultan Selim I alone, he is estimated to have had over 30,000 people executed there.
Jesus
there was no
Christ,
official
that's a lot of
executioner,
people.
Well, I mean, he was a
with this
dictator, of
seemingly
course.
never-ending job. Instead, the job of carrying out these executions usually fell to one of the palace's so-called gardeners, except when the person was of extremely high standing, in which case the execution would be carried out by the palace's Bostanchi Basha, which roughly translates to head gardener. While you might think that the name for these workers simply came from the fact that they were tasked with pruning off individuals who had been deemed unfit to be members of that society, they also were charged with literal gardening and maintaining
Damn,
gardens.
dude.
Dude,
Wow,
They were-
what a strange job.
the dude that mows your lawn used to have executions as part of his duties back in the day. That's crazy.
Yeah, so
Yeah, trim those hedges, and I'm gonna need you to kill a couple people later on.
all right.
Well, they're good at pruning plants. They'll be good at pruning men as well.
Weird.
I guess they were.
What a weird couple of jobs to pair together. Your job is you maintain the palace grounds and also you kill people we don't like. Oh, okay.
Fair enough.
And grounds of the palace. Beyond this, they variously functioned as bodyguards, police, and security for the palace as the need arose, with several thousand gardeners on staff at any given
So, like,
time.
the fucking Secret Service used to also take care of the White House grounds. Crazy.
Neat.
Now to the race. While most who were given the red sherbet would simply be killed shortly after by a gardener, particularly high-ranking officials such as Grand Viziers still had a little hope. The head gardener was honor bound to challenge these individuals to a foot race through the gardens to the place of execution near the Fish Market Gate on the southern side of the palace, a distance of around 300 meters. If the person was able to finish the dash before the head gardener, their sentence would be reduced from death to simple banishment. As far as historians can tell from the known documented instances of this, very few people ever managed to defeat the Bastanchi Basher in the race. This is perhaps not surprising, as the race was heavily stacked in the executioner's favor, considering he knew the palace grounds inside out and was more often than not in fantastic shape relative to the victim. All condemned who lost were immediately strangled upon reaching the gate. For those
Fuck. What a finish line. What a fucking finish line to cross, dude.
Oh yeah, dude, you could tell that. I was gonna say there's objections too. It's like, one, this person's probably not gonna know the palace grounds, and two, this guy works outside all the time, and it's probably some fat ass official. You know what I mean?
He's not only the gardener, which involves fucking hard labor all day, but he's the bodyguard as well. So this is not a dude you fuck with, not a dude that's in bad shape, and not a dude you're probably gonna win a 300-meter dash against.
Just kick him in the knee.
I don't think you were allowed to. You'd probably just get strangled.
Give him a good, quick kick in the knee as you're running. Oh, sorry, kick you in the knee.
That's a strangling.
Nope. Hell no.
exception.
Well, you know, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Pretty
I
interesting
think we should
stuff.
reinstitute that shit, dude.
Yeah, I think we should do that, but not just for the rich prisoners. I think we should just do that across the board.
Yeah. No banishment, though. Just make it life in prison. You know, if you don't want to, if you get the death penalty,
I say just go free.
you could beat the warden in a foot race.
Yeah, I say,
Except for this country, the fucking warden would be like a former track star,
No,
dude.
dude, they were even smart enough not to let the people just go free and go about their day.
Let them go
they
back.
Sent them
let
out
them
of the fucking
free
country.
Free them up.
Yeah, you're banished, dude.
Get them back
fuck
into
that.
society. If they can
No.
run fast, they deserve to
No.
be free.
No, TJ, wrong.
You guys are faggots. So death by burning, burned at the fucking stake.
Heretic, burn them!
Another pretty
Burn
horrible way
'em.
to go.
Burn them! Yeah, motherfucker, burn that motherfucker at the stake. Hell yeah.
The fire will cleanse the heresy.
So here's a little picture of it.
Let's picture the burning.
Picture the burning motherfuckers. Yeah, let's take a look.
I'm burning for you.
I'm burning for you.
Look at these fucking heretics.
Yeah, look at that son of a bitch. Look at him burn. What a little faggot. Actually, that's where the word faggot comes from, is the sticks, the kindling and shit, right?
Yep.
Yeah?
So, yeah, apropos. Deliberately causing death through the effects of combustion or effects of exposure to extreme heat has a long history as a form of capital punishment. Many societies have employed it as an execution method for activities considered criminal, such as treason, rebellious actions by slaves, heresy, witchcraft, and sexual transgressions such as incest or homosexuality.
Yeah,
Yep.
you burning up with lust for my wife? Let's see how you burn then.
I fucked my father as part of a ritual
And I mean, this is one of the most powerful things. I mean,
to give me powers.
I mean, just as the human eye is
and
just
then we
drawn to
plotted
the
treason against the king.
You're just drawn to the flames, dude. It's like, you just imagine, like, they build up a big ass fucking pyre around this person. He's fucking slowly starting to fucking get hotter and hotter. You know, like, this is definitely one of the most painful ways to fucking die.
And you know, a bunch of people gather around and roast
Yeah!
and shit.
Yeah, it's
The
pretty fucked
best
up.
known type of execution of death by burning is when the condemned is bound to a large wooden stake. This is usually called burning at the stake, or in some cases, auto da fe. Sounds French. Auto da fe. But other forms of death resulting from exposure to extreme heat are known. For example, pouring substances such as molten metal onto a person, or down their throats or into their ears.
Dude, that's the Game of Thrones shit.
Yeah.
Where fucking what's his name says, like, I'm gonna make you a crown of gold. He
Yeah.
just pours molten gold over
I
his
think that was
head.
based on, what is it, the Roman Crassus, Marcus Crassus. That was, I think they did the same thing, 'cause he was supposed to be the richest man in Rome. I think they basically did that to him. They gave him a fucking crown of gold on his head.
It's nice stuff.
Ouch.
I mean, that's what they say, or something similar to that effect.
I mean,
But
this
yeah.
one has been used all over the place. I'll just focus in on a few examples.
But yeah, they love to burn people. It's a fun time.
Hebraic tradition, like the Hebrews.
The Jews did it.
In Genesis 38, Judah orders Tamar the widow of his son living in her father's household, to be burned when she is believed to have become pregnant by an extramarital sexual relation.
Oh, shit, dude.
Oops.
Tamar saves herself by proving that Judah is himself the father of her child. How did she do that? Was Maury
Damn.
Povich there?
Yeah, Maury had a DNA evidence.
Judah, you are the father.
In the book of Jubilees, the same story is basically told with some intriguing differences. According to Karen A. Reeder, in Genesis, Judah is exercising his patriarchal power at a distance, whereas he and the relatives seem more actively involved in Tamar's impending execution. In Hebraic law, death by burning was prescribed for 10 forms of sexual crimes. The imputed crime of Tamar, namely that a married daughter of a priest commits adultery, and 9 versions of relationships considered as incestuous, such as having sex with one's own daughter or granddaughter, but also, for example, to have sex with one's mother-in-law or with one's wife's daughter. Okay, so don't fuck your mother-in-law, don't fuck your stepdaughter.
They thought about this shit because, it probably happened one time. They're like, shit, what do we do? It's like, we burn them.
Burn them.
Dude, I love the medieval Maury Povich thing. My brain is just chewing that
dude.
shit.
Yeah, oh, yeah, dude.
When it comes to 8-month-old Hezekiah, Judah, thou art the father.
Burn him.
Burn him.
Burn him live. Ritual child sacrifice in Carthage? Damn.
Whoa, dude.
That's not really the death penalty, though.
It kind of is for the people being burned.
Well, but they're not being punished for a crime, though.
No, I know.
They're
But
just,
in effect, the same result, though.
Eastern Roman Empire, under 6th century Emperor Justinian I, the death penalty had been decreed for impenitent Manichaeans. But a specific punishment was not made explicit. By the 7th century, however, those found guilty of duelist heresy could risk being burned at the stake. Those found guilty of performing magic rites and corrupting sacred objects in the process might face death by burning, as evidenced in a 7th century case.
Okay.
So they like to burn people. I'm just picking a few random ones because there's
people
literally...
Yeah, this is one of the most common
It's
methods,
across so
and
many cultures.
probably
Across
oldest.
time and across cultures,
The
dude.
Spanish Inquisition
they
used
like
it
to burn
a
people.
lot.
I mean, if you think of this even at a prehistorical context, like wielding fire was one of the first big technological advancements of man, and you gotta imagine it wasn't long after harnessing it that he, used it to punish an enemy.
Ooh, let's burn people. Here's some North American examples. Indigenous North Americans often use burning as a form of execution against members of other tribes or against white settlers during the 18th and 19th centuries.
Ooh, damn.
Roasting over a slow fire was a customary method. So Indians like to burn people.
That's different, though. Roasting over a low fire is different than being tied to a pole and burned.
Well, this is just any fucking
Yeah.
heat murder.
I'm just saying,
basically.
I'm not saying it doesn't belong on the list. I'm saying it's like, that's way, I think, probably worse, right? Because, you got to imagine if you're tied to a stake like the gentleman here, you're probably going to suffocate. I mean, you're going to be in a lot of pain, but eventually you're just not going to be able to get enough oxygen into your lungs.
Yeah, you're going to choke on the
Yeah.
smoke and shit.
Like, if you're slow roasting over a fire,
It's like being cooked to death,
right,
basically.
you're going to, I mean, man, that's like the slow boil that we talked about.
Listen to this. In Massachusetts, there are 2 known cases of burning at the stake. First, in 1681, a slave named Maria tried to kill her owner by setting his house on fire. She was convicted of arson and burned at the stake in Roxbury. Concurrently, a slave named Jack, convicted in a separate arson case, was hanged at a nearby gallows, and after his death, his body was thrown into the fire with that of Maria. Second, in 1755, a group of slaves had conspired and killed their owner, with servants Mark and Phyllis executed for his murder. Mark was hanged and his body gibbeted, and Phyllis was burned at the stake at Cambridge. So there's been 2 burning at the stake things in Massachusetts, both for slaves that rose up against their masters. In New York, several burnings at the stake are recorded, particularly following the suspected slave revolt plots. So it seemed like a lot of this was used to control slaves.
Yeah.
Make them afraid. Like, yeah, if you defy us white folk, you're gonna burn.
Which, I mean, that's a good threat for anybody. Nobody wants to burn.
Let's see if there's so we can find some good modern examples of this still being used. This article is like scary long.
Yeah, no, I know. It's one of the most common and documented forms of execution. Maybe the most.
Yeah, I mean, it's still being used in the Middle East, surprisingly.
Shock.
Yeah, ISIS has
shocked.
employed it several.
ISIS has used it several times. Yeah, actually, ISIS is really what's keeping this one alive. It seems
A lot of these,
ISIS really likes to revisit these old classic
oldies but
methods
goodies,
of murdering people.
You know, like, how can we murder people? Like, you know, we have to go back to the fucking past. We have to, like, really revive these methods. Like, we can just shoot somebody in the head. But is that really demonstrating
I love
to them?
this picture, dude. I love this fucking picture. Look at this one guy, dude.
He looks so sad.
He's just kind of like,
He's
yeah,
like, man,
all right.
This sucks.
They're all kind of like chilling. They're like, man, this is kind of lame.
Dude,
I mean,
I love though this guy off to the side here pretty much has the exact same expression as the dude that's literally burning.
Yeah.
It's kind of like,
They
meh.
had trouble with emotion in faces back then. Everybody looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Except for the other dude burning. He looks like he's screaming and yelling.
he's like, whoa,
He just kind of looks mildly pissed.
kind of hurts.
A lot of people just kind of watching, like, whatever.
Well, I mean, this looks like this like what's
Ho
like
hum, ho hum.
what
Let's
is this, like
burn
the
some
9th
people.
century or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
They all just look bored. Like everyone's just like,
Medieval,
we're bored. Might as well burn some people.
Yeah,
I
this
guess.
is a
All right, I'm burning. Okay.
Dude, look, they've got audio foam back then too. You see that in
Whoa.
the background?
Yeah, dude. Look at all the sound foam they had.
For the screaming, so
They
that
wanna
the rest
really
of the
hear the-
village didn't have to hear it. They padded it all up with audio dampening.
That's nice of them.
It's like the precursor to like THX sound, dude. Like
Yeah.
what do you think people that shit was invented hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago?
Hear every
So-
scream, every whimper. The new THX
Yeah.
steak burning.
Every plea for mercy.
Only at the Brandenburg Gate. It's like, yes.
Dude, I've seen some gay dudes shove some pretty big shit up their ass, but man, this is a little bit much here.
Whoa, dude.
Oof.
This is a little bit much, don't you think? I mean,
Yes.
when it's coming out the other end, you got to say like maybe this
You've gone a little
dildo
far.
I mean, and spiky.
this dildo
too,
is
dude.
a little big. Little bit big.
little sharp too.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Well,
Well, the thing about this too is usually you slid down as well. Like
Yeah.
it was put up, and of course you try to keep yourself up, but of course you eventually gravity's gonna win, and you're gonna slide all the way down.
Ugh.
so this is death by impalement. That's a fun one. A lot of fun there.
Well, everybody's favorite vampire was
Vlad.
Vlad
Yeah, Vlad
Tepes.
is- yeah,
So impalement as a method of execution and also torture is the penetration of a human by an object such as a stake, pole, spear, or hook, often by complete or partial perforation of the torso. It was used particularly in response to crimes against the state and regarded across a number of cultures as a very harsh form of capital punishment.
No shit.
Yeah, and recorded in myth and art. Impalement was also used during wartime to suppress rebellion, punish traitors or collaborators, and as a punishment for breaches of military discipline.
It was useful because you could leave people there so that the partisans that you didn't kill would come back and find the people that had been captured stuffed with fucking stakes coming out their
Well,
mouths
also
and
to think
shit,
about
or
how-
hanging from trees by hooks.
how
or whatever the fuck.
inexpensive it is too. I mean, it's like take a sharpened stick and put someone on it.
Yep.
That's it.
Pretty easy to carry around.
Boiling somebody, that takes a lot of time and effort. Hanging them, you have to have rope. This is like basically like go to the fucking forest, sharpen a bunch of sticks, and leave people to fucking die.
So highway robbers, they often suffered this penalty. Grave robbers, they often suffered it. Violating state policies or monopolies or subverting standards for trade.
Damn, dudes.
Offenders
Protecting
have also
money.
been impaled for a variety of cultural, sexual, and religious reasons. References to impalement in Babylonia and the Neo-Assyrian Empire are found as early as the 18th century BC. Within the Ottoman Empire, this form of execution continued into the 20th century. That's not too long ago.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. In the 1800s. I think I pulled another picture of a dude getting hook impaled, which is a different kind of
Oh, that's not fun.
impaled. So, yeah.
Ooh, dude, fuck.
Hooked and hung right under the rib cage through
And
your
once
torso.
again, looks kind of nonplussed by the whole thing, you know?
He's probably dead.
No, he looks like he's still alive to me.
Plus, looking down, I can see the last guy.
I think he just don't give a fuck, dude. People were tougher back then. People were just like, yeah, I guess I'm dying.
Yep.
Whatevs. What the fuck?
You can see the other skulls in the background too. It's like these are the other motherfuckers that fucking broke the law.
I mean, with this much damage too, you'd probably be in shock if you were still alive.
Oh yeah, this person, they would just be in agony.
That's true. Probably get a little bit of an endorphin rush. This is called hanging by the ribs. A slightly variant way of executing people by means of impalement was to force an iron meat hook beneath a person's ribs and hang them up to die slowly. This technique is used in the 18th century Ottoman-controlled Bosnia, but the practice is also attested, for example, in 1770s Dutch Suriname as a punishment meted out to rebellious slaves.
So more slave punishment. This one looks just particular. I mean, any form of impalement is particularly nasty. If you're being lowered on a pole, starting with your asshole, and slowly dragged down over it. I mean, you'd die before it came out your fucking mouth, but you'd be in agony. And same thing here.
And of course, the most classic example of an impaler is probably Vlad the Impaler, Dracula. Prince of Wallachia. He's credited as the first notable figure to prefer this method of execution during the late medieval period. Became so notorious for its liberal employment that among his several nicknames he was known as Vlad the Impaler. After being orphaned, betrayed, forced into exile, and pursued by his enemies, he retook control of Wallachia in 1456. He dealt harshly with his enemies, especially those who had betrayed his family in the past. Whoops. Or profited from their misfortunes.
Not a guy you wanted to cross.
Though a variety of methods were employed, he has been most associated with his use of impalement. The liberal use of capital punishment was eventually extended to Saxon settlers, members of a rival clan, and criminals in his domain, whether they were members of the boyar, nobility, or peasants, and eventually to any among his subjects that displeased him. So just, like... If you even mildly offended Vlad, you basically were gonna get fucking.
Yeah, you mean like let's say Vlad shows up to the party,
big ass fucking.
You're wearing a fucking cooler shirt. He's all like, I don't really like that guy. I'll just fucking kill him.
Yeah,
impale that motherfucker.
I mean, at least he applied it equally. You know what I mean? He didn't give the nobility an easy way out. You know,
it's wrong
he did
to spill
fucked up
royal
shit like
blood.
making people dance and be cooked alive, making people eat part of their bodies before they fucking were impaled.
Yep.
He was a hardcore motherfucker.
Here's
dude.
a little thing about him. He let children be roasted, those their mothers were forced to eat.
Yep.
He cut off the breasts of women, those their husbands were forced to eat. And after that, he had them all impaled.
Oh, God.
That's just his, good time,
So it's not even just the impaling.
No, he's like,
no.
Impalement isn't enough. I want to see you... I want to roast your child in front of you, force you to eat them, and then impale you, And then, maybe if you're a dude, I'll just cut your wife's tits off, make you eat those, then I'll impale you. I want you to think about that while you're being impaled.
And you know what the funny thing is? He still had a bunch of people to impale, so this idea that the harshest of penalties stops people from transgressing. I mean, it sounds like they're saying without saying it here that he was pretty much insane by the end and was just killing everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like you really had to do much of a transgression
but
to
still,
get impaled.
You know what I mean? Like, it didn't stop people from crossing him.
He still has his defenders to this day, too. People are like, yeah, he was actually a really good leader, honestly.
Wow.
No. Sorry. If it's basically you displease Caesar, so you get impaled, that doesn't really say much about the system that people are living under. Maybe,
this one seems kind of...
Maybe for the time it was good. I don't know.
This one seems kind of nice compared to some of the other stuff we've looked at, but hanging.
Another
Good
one with a
old
long
hanging.
article and a long tradition.
Oh, yeah. We've been doing this for a while, man. Here, let's take a little look at a little hanging painting from
Hang 'em
back in
high.
the day. This is a painting of some dudes
Rapscallions.
being hanged.
Some ruffians and rogues of the evening
These
having their necks
highwaymen.
stretched.
So, hanging is the suspension of a person by a noose or ligature around the neck. The Oxford English Dictionary states that hanging in this sense is specifically to put to death by suspension by the neck, though it formerly also referred to crucifixion and death by impalement, in which the body would remain hanging, quote-unquote. It's been a common method of capital punishment since medieval times. It's the official execution method of numerous countries and regions to this day.
Yep.
The first account of execution by hanging was in Homer's Odyssey. Hanging is also a common method of suicide. I think we all know that.
Of course.
So let's see. It's been used in Australia, Brazil, Bulgaria, Canada, Egypt, Germany, Hungary, India, Iran, Iraq, Israel, Japan, Jordan, Lebanon, Liberia, Malaysia, Portugal, Pakistan, Russia, Singapore, Syria, United Kingdom, United States. Jews were often punished by something called inverted hanging. Usually, the thing that kills you is not the cutting off of oxygen, although that can kill you. A lot of times, it's about breaking your neck.
I mean, a lot of these, there's different kinds of hangings.
Right.
There's short drop and long drop hanging, and there's forced, like, weight-based strangulation where you're just tied to a pole and leaned forward.
Yeah, I can show you a picture of that. This is a mass execution by hanging performed by the Serbs.
Yeah.
And you see just a whole row of people that are just, suspended by their neck from a stick. Just, they're not being dropped from any height.
So that would be strangulation. Now, this is a fucking crazy picture. This is an Old West
Did the guy's head just come off?
Of a guy named Black Jack. It was a long drop hanging, and his head just popped off of his body.
Just pop right off.
And this is a picture of the guys posing with the corpse, and you can see it says their body of Black Jack.
And Voldemort
executed.
was there. That's kind of neat. There he is. Good old Voldemort.
That was definitely a merciful kind of death. You're not going to feel much if your head just is popped off.
Yeah, when you look at... imagine what we're talking about before, like, all these more ancient methods, like... People probably thought this was like a humane way to kill people at the time. Like, you know what? Your neck just snaps and you're dead.
Yep.
As opposed to being burned or stabbed or fucking broken on the fucking wheel or crushed.
But even if you just strangle to death there, it's more merciful than anything.
Well, here's the thing about hanging, too, is with the short drop hanging, you do die by strangulation, but you lose consciousness within about 6 to 15 seconds.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like... and then...
Right.
And it takes about 20 minutes for you to actually die, but you're not really aware of what's going on after about 20
also,
seconds.
it's relatively bloodless. I mean, when you're talking about crushing somebody or stabbing them or impaling them, that's disgusting.
Not in the case of Blackjack, though. He didn't.
Well, yeah, but that's an exceptional case.
So the standard drop, that's about breaking your neck. The long drop, I guess that's just if they really want to make sure the neck is broken. I don't know.
Yeah.
And, people have obviously used it for suicide and stuff as well. Probably where I think of hanging the most is like the Old West. I mean, it's hardly restricted to there. It's been used all throughout history.
There's a really cool
tons
scene
of different countries.
At the beginning of the HBO series Deadwood. It's one of the opening scenes where the sheriff, who's the central character, Seth Bullock, is in possession of a prisoner who's accused of horse thievery, and a mob shows up, and they're like, "We're gonna kill this motherfucker, give him to us." And he's like, "Absolutely not. If this guy's gonna die, it's gonna happen under color of law." And he hangs him right there on the porch, and the guy's like, "You'll help me with my fucking fall, won't you?" And he's like, "Yep." He kicks the stool out from under him, he starts to strangle, and then Bullock gets underneath him, grabs his legs, lifts him up, and drops him, and it just as an act of mercy, so that he didn't have to strangle there to death. So,
for some reason, even though it's not really the greatest movie ever made, I kind of think of The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah.
The opening scene.
I think of that scene. Yeah. I don't know if is it the opener.
I thought it was the opener, but
it's early in the film.
It's early in the movie. Yeah.
It shows the girl as a child. She's told by the bandits that just killed her father that if she can shoot the rope and cut him down, that they'll let him free, basically. And because she doesn't know what she's doing with a pistol, she ends up shooting her father in the head, and they just kind of laugh and ride off, and that's the impetus for her to go get revenge and shit. Right. So that's what I think about. I think about Clint Eastwood in one of those movies where he has to. I think it's actually the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Where he's tied to his horse.
Yeah, well, he's got that scam where he brings in the criminal, the wanted criminal, then saves him.
Oh,
gets the reward and then saves him before his hanging and takes him to the next town and be like, I found him.
What movie is it where the dude is tied to his horse to a tree? And they let the horse sit there until it wants to go look for water, and then
I know you're talking.
You know what I mean? I can't remember what it's in. Oh, you know what that's in? That's in fucking that fucking Mel Gibson movie where he's the gambler.
Oh right, Maverick.
Maverick, yeah. They tie him to a horse from the tree.
Yeah.
And then they put snakes down there, and he's trying to get the horse not to run away.
That's a cool one. I actually kind of like that. I haven't seen it in a while though. This is the Nazis like to use it as well. Go figure.
These are
this
Polish.
is a bunch of Polish people being executed by the Nazis in.
And you can see they're emaciated as fuck already, so
Yeah.
they've already been tortured and starved. And then this is their end.
This was a thing. I remember. I don't know if you've read Night by Elie Wiesel.
No.
But he was a Holocaust survivor, and he describes a scene in the book where they actually hanged a little Jewish kid, and because he was so light, it took a really long time for him to die. And so they all had to act, and they were actually all forced to watch. So they had to sit there and watch for 30 minutes while this kid was still twitching and shit. Because he was just a little 8 or 9 year old or something.
Fucked up.
Yeah, emaciated, fucking.
The Nazis. I don't know if you guys know this. The Nazis were kind of dicks.
Yes.
Wow.
Just a little bit.
Newsflash.
The Nazis were not
Breaking
nice.
news. The Nazis were assholes.
They were not nice guys. Wow, just everywhere has used this. I want to talk a little bit about the inverted hanging before we move on. This is the Jewish punishment.
Okay.
Let me just get a picture of that up, too, so we can take a quick look. This is crazy looking. So you obviously don't die the same way.
No.
With the inverted hanging, completely different principle of hanging.
Oh, it's almost the two starving dogs.
Yeah, you're hung along with two dogs. That of course the dogs are freaking out, and they're gonna just kind of rip you apart.
These are animals or wolves.
It wasn't always an execution method. A lot of times it was just a torture method.
Oh my fucking god, dude.
So the inverted hanging with the accompaniment of two dogs, originally reserved for traders, was identified from the 14th century as the Jewish execution, being practiced in the later Middle Ages in both Northern and Mediterranean Europe. The Jewish execution in Germany has been thoroughly studied by G. Kish, who argued convincingly that neither the inverted hanging nor the stringing up of dogs or wolves besides the victim were particularly Jewish punishments during the High Middle Ages. They first appeared as Jewish punishments in Germany only towards the end of the 13th century.
Are
never
they saying
being
Jewish
recognized.
punishments that Jews carried out, or that were carried out against Jews?
Let's see. This came to be primarily associated with Jewish thieves called Judenstrafe.
Yeah, it was carried out against Jews.
Got it.
So against Jews. So this is a pretty fucked up way to die. There's a method, I don't know what culture used it, but it was pretty fucked up. They'd tie you in a bag with a dog and a monkey and a snake.
And throw you in the river.
And throw you into the river.
And obviously the animals go mad.
Bite the shit out of you and you all suffocate together.
Yeah, that's no fun. So this is beheading, decapitation. Let's take a look. This is a scene here.
It's the decapitation of St. Paul.
Yeah, notice how his head glows. That shit's like a fucking glow stick, dude. Yeah, that's how fucking magical.
Well, they actually have this in I think at the Vatican City. They have the spot where he was supposedly decapitated.
Oh, did you see it?
Yeah.
This
was
painting,
his head there glowing?
Oh yeah, of course, dude.
This painting is in the Louvre as well.
So we might have seen this painting.
I think we should have seen this painting.
Maybe I don't remember it, but
I
saw a shit ton of paintings that day, so who knows. Here's some peasants.
Peasants.
Yeah, this is I'm assuming during the French Revolution.
Yep, carrying the powdered wigged heads of some freshly guillotined nobility.
They look pretty happy about it too.
Of course they are.
These fucked these rich faggots up. Fucked them up.
What's on the other sticks?
I don't know, like testicles?
Yeah, I was looking at that and I was like, the heads are being raised high as examples of the execution, but what kind of viscera is hanging from those other sticks?
It looks like fucking testicles.
Balls
to me,
or
man.
their guts, maybe.
Woohoo!
This is, of course, these people were executed by the guillotine.
Yeah, these
Not
motherfuckers.
always in the French Revolution,
But a lot of them were.
But yeah, very, very common.
A lot of them were.
Also seen as very humane.
Even the
at times.
inventor of the guillotine was executed with the guillotine, so
Well, another thing they thought
that'd
was
be a
humane.
shitty moment for him.
They thought you put your head in, the blade comes down, you're killed. At the time, it seemed very modern, ethical. Like, look, your head's gonna be chopped off quickly. You don't have to worry about the blade failing or whatever. It's just gonna slide down, kill you, and that's it.
Nazis also used guillotines, so that's kind of cool.
The guillotine was used up till the 1970s.
Yeah, that's crazy. In France, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the French were still using that motherfucker into the 70s,
Obviously, it became less common after the French Revolution, but that was its heyday.
But beheading is another one of those ones that's just everywhere. It's all throughout history. It's all throughout fucking cultures across the fucking globe.
Yep.
There's certain ones of these, like, some of them seem more obscure, like boiling people alive. Yeah, it was done, but it wasn't super common throughout history. But things like hanging and decapitating, those things are just like all across every fucking human society, every continent where there's people, every society where there's people. This is just a pretty common way of ridding society of the people you don't like.
I mean, well, for a lot of human history, it's like you're figuring that they're gonna go with the cheapest and easiest and most plausible way. So it's like bludgeon you to death, stab you, hang you. People are gonna go with what's easy.
Yeah,
and what can
with
be done?
Decapitation too, though, and a lot of these, it's also about the brutality of it. Because maybe not for the person, but for the people that were meant to be watching it. Can you imagine what it must have been like to be present at a guillotining? The gout of blood that would shoot out in the head. I mean, it would just be a fucking totally surreal experience and just burn into your memory, I'd imagine.
Well, especially because in the French Revolution in particular was the nobility. It was like the tax farmers and people they were killing. It's like, yeah, it's like that. That's like us seeing like that, like people we see like Bill Gates going to be executed. Like that motherfucker did us wrong.
Yeah, some big pharmaceutical executive or something dragged out.
Yeah,
the
fucking head
square.
of the big bank, all the big banks, fucking people fucking are brought up to a stage and executed in front of us. Instead of just getting away with all their scams.
Yeah.
In ancient Japan, like if a soldier fled from battle, someone from the samurai class could decapitate them. And what they'd have to do, they'd force you, or I guess it was viewed as like, this is how you can preserve your honor, basically. You've dishonored yourself. The only way to restore your honor is you've got to take a small blade,
disembowel yourself.
Cut your fucking stomach open, spill your guts, and then you'll kind of fall, and then a samurai
Chops your head off. Yeah, like
lob your head
seppuku,
off with a
basically.
katana.
You basically you just like kind of disembowel yourself, and then your head's cut off.
And then you would have been seen to have died honorably, right?
Right, and then
no matter
basically-
what your transgression was.
Yeah. Basic, and it was the katana thing was about mercy. It was basically you were showing them by disemboweling yourself that I'm willing to kill myself and die painfully, and then they would do you the merciful act of chopping your head off
And ending.
to end your suffering and to hasten your death.
Got it.
So it was kind of a very ritualistic thing. Now this is just take a look. Paul's already seen it.
Hold on. There's something that you missed with the beheading thing.
Okay, we can go back.
Go
to
go
beheading for a second.
if you have the document up.
Yeah, I got it.
There's something I wanted you to read about the head lives on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's
we can talk
crazy.
about that.
And this is something that is kind of called into question because there's really no ethical way to study what happens to a decapitated human head by a scientist. So there are scientists that believe different things about this, but this is an account from a historical beheading of somebody who was there who made a point to observe what the head did starting as soon as it was severed from the body.
Yeah.
All right, so the head fell on the severed surface of the neck, and I did not therefore have to take it up in my hands as all the newspapers have vied with each other in repeating. I was not obligated even to touch it in order to set it up right. Chance served me well for the observation which I wish to make. Here, then, is what I was able to note immediately after the decapitation. The eyelids and the lips of the guillotined man worked in irregularly rhythmic contractions of about 5 or 6 seconds. This phenomena has been remarked by all those finding themselves in the same conditions as myself for observing what happens after severing the neck.
So your eyes and your lips, like...
What?
I waited for several seconds. The spasmodic movement ceased. The face relaxed, the lids half closed on the eyeballs, leaving only the white of the conjunctiva visible, exactly as in the dying whom we have occasion to see every day in the exercise of our profession, or as in those just dead. It was then that I called in a strong, sharp voice, Langui?
The name of the man that was killed.
Oh, okay. I saw the eyelids slowly lift up without any spasmodic contractions. I insist advisedly on this peculiarity, but with an even movement quite distinct and normal, such as happens in everyday life with people awakened or torn from their thoughts. Next, Langui's eyes very definitely fixed themselves on mine, and the pupils focused themselves. I was not then dealing with a sort of vague, dull look without any expression that can be observed any day in dying people to whom one speaks. I was dealing with undeniably living eyes which were looking at me. After several
weird,
seconds,
dude.
the eyelids closed again, slowly and evenly, and the head took on the same appearance as it had before I called out. It was at that point that I called out again once more, without any spasm. Slowly the eyelids lifted, and undeniably living eyes fixed themselves on mine, and perhaps even more penetration than the first time. Then there was a further closing of the eyes, but now less complete. I attempted the effect of a third call. There was no further movement, and the eyes took on the glazed look which they have in the dead.
So
That's fucking crazy, dude. Can you imagine, for at least for 20 or 30 seconds, kind of like, huh?
yeah. And I mean, once again, scientists and medical professionals are kind of varied on whether or not, I mean, they agree that there's probably some spasmodic twitching of the face. But as to whether or not there's a modicum of consciousness for 30 seconds or 40 seconds, this is in dispute. Like, this account is in dispute. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about, because it can't be ruled out. You know, nobody's been able. There's no way to study it. So there's a distinct possibility that if you are guillotined, that for 30 seconds or so you remain responsive.
Paul, there is a way to study this. Let's fucking take all the people on death row, and we'll fucking hook their head up to some fucking modern shit. We'll fucking do some MRIs. We'll scan their brains and shit. Chop their heads off and see what happens.
Sounds ethical.
Let's see if there's any activity in those ranges of the brains. Come on, guys.
Let's do it, man.
To answer this question.
So back to this creepy shit.
We covered this one earlier in the kind of overview. This is hung, drawn, and quartered.
Yeah.
The early parts of it.
This is pretty unique.
Look at that dude pointing. He's like,
This is not one of the ones that's happened all across the world.
I like people pointing like, look, dude, that guy's being like fucking disemboweled up there.
Check this motherfucker out.
Like, you have the point.
This guy right here is
Like who has to point at that? If that was happening all around us now, our eyes would be fixated. Like, what the fuck is going on?
There's another dude.
Look at this guy next to him that's just like stoned too.
He's like, whoa, bro.
Looks like they were just walking along, and he's like, dude, do you see this? What's going on over here?
This guy is totally fucking baked.
Dude, this guy is totally fucking... Dude, yeah.
This guy's blazed. Like,
everyone there is kind of blazed. I think they all got high and like, dude, you want to see a guy get like drawn and quartered and shit? Like,
and
yeah,
look at this
bro.
guy. This guy's having a grand old time.
Yeah,
He's got a big
loves
smile
his work.
on his face and shit.
The guy is doing it too kind of looks like he's drunk. He's like, whoa.
Wow, man, this kind of sucks.
I mean, his dick
Chopped
and
his
balls
dick
have been
off, you
cut
know.
off.
Oh, damn, man. That fucking sucks.
His guts have been pulled out. They're to be soon thrown into the fire while he's still alive.
They were fastened to a hurdle or wood panel, drawn by a horse to the place of execution where they were hanged.
So they were dragged.
Almost to the point of death. They were then emasculated. That's where they chop your dick off.
Chop your fucking...
Disemboweled, beheaded, and quartered. Chopped into 4 pieces.
This guy's only like halfway through his shit, dude.
Yep. It's just begun.
Yeah, he ain't even got to the fun stuff yet. He ain't been disemboweled yet. I mean, maybe a little, but you know. The severity of the sentence was measured against the severity of the crime. As an attack on the monarch's authority, high treason was considered a deplorable act demanding the most extreme form of punishment. Although some convicts had their sentence modified and suffered a less ignominious end, over a period of several hundred years, many men found guilty of high treason were subjected to the law's ultimate sanction. They included many English Catholic priests executed during the Elizabethan era, and several of the regicides involved in the 1649 execution of Charles I.
Whoa, shit, dude.
So, but this was a distinctly English punishment. Like, you go through this article, it's not like, here's all the countries this has been done in. This was uniquely an English means of murdering people in the name of the state. And then, of course, they send the 4 pieces off to 4 different parts of the community to let everyone know this is what happens if you shit talk the king, basically.
Yeah, he says a bad shit about the king. Here's the last guy that did it.
Yeesh. Yep, cut into chunks and, like, toured around the country. Like, here's a chunk of somebody that fucked up on the king.
I think it's almost the point to get into the efficacy of this, because, I mean, it's interesting to note all these punishments, but even this, people still talk shit about the king. People still challenge the authority of the monarchy.
Oh, of course they did.
I mean, even with this being the punishment, so it really just shows you, like, it wasn't effective. I mean,
this has been debunked over and over again since the beginning of time. This idea that the more harsh and, ugly and painful that the end is, the less likely people are to transgress against whatever the law of the land is. And that's just, like, if that were true, we wouldn't be reading about all these accounts of people that were burned or drowned or fucking hung. You know what I mean? If people were afraid of that to the point where they wouldn't transgress, we wouldn't have all these accounts. I mean, certainly some of these accounts are people that were executed that didn't do anything wrong.
Sure.
But there were still people stealing. There were still people blaspheming. There were still people doing whatever, even though they knew that this was their punishment. So it just doesn't work.
We got a few more to go through. We can kind of speed through them at this point, because these are we're now into the more modern ones that people are probably a little bit more familiar with. The first, probably the most common one today, I'd imagine, lethal injection.
Yep.
You see here the table they strap you in on.
This is the lethal injection chamber at San Quentin in California.
What's interesting is the huge dispute about this is that the drug makers, I think, are German or they're in Europe, actually stopped providing the drugs to the U.S. to execute people.
Right.
Because they actually said they argued it was painful. In a lot of cases, people have suffered agonizing deaths. They're supposed to be, at this point, relatively painless. Like, you're supposed to be put to sleep and then you're just killed.
But it's done haphazardly, and there's a lot of legal challenges out right now in the lower and higher courts calling this cruel and unusual punishment. So there are a lot of people on death row right now.
The neat thing about this one
down.
is we invented it. This is developed in the United States.
Right.
It's now also a method of execution in China, Thailand, Guatemala, Taiwan, Maldives, and Vietnam. Seems like the Asian countries really like this.
They were like, oh, new method of execution.
Well, think about it. It's because it's billed as, like, this is very humane. Like, it's just kind of like you go to sleep and then you're killed.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
Doesn't always work that way.
That's the theory of it. Is this happens to you and you're dead, and it's very sterile. Look how clinical this environment. It looks like almost like a medical procedure, just against your will.
It's carried out like one. Yeah.
It's carried out in that fashion.
Here's the room you get to die in.
We strap you down and then inject you with it. Like, I think it's 3 separate drugs.
They give you a barbiturate, a paralytic, and a potassium solution.
Yeah.
For the express purpose of causing immediate death. And now there's been
really
botched
work.
ones where you hear the dude screaming and struggling. So obviously, they don't always get the mixture just right.
Yeah, those botched ones are the subject of those court challenges where people that are on death row are saying, this is cruel and unusual. Look what happened to this guy. Look what happened to this guy.
Yet again, I mean, they at the time in the country, of the U.S., this was the penalty, and people still committed the crimes. It's like, it's just interesting because people act like crimes are committed with a rational person. Like, it's like humans are very emotional animals. It's not like people think, okay, if I do this, then I'm facing this. At a time, they might not give a shit. There might be a crime of passion. There might be a moment you're angry with somebody, and you push them, and they fall and break their neck and die.
Right.
And does that mean that
the misguided idea that you can get away with it? You can't scare that out of people.
So, it gained It was actually first proposed in 1888 by a doctor who his argument for it was it'll be cheaper than hanging. Gained popularity in the late 20th century because it was viewed as being more humane than other methods at the time, which included electrocution, gas inhalation, the gas chamber, hanging, and firing squad. Personally, I think firing squad. You know
what's funny?
Just fucking come up to me and shoot me in the back of the fucking head.
You can't do that though. The firing squad. I mean, we'll get to it, but there's a reason why it's set up the way it is.
Right. I know. This is the most commonly used one today.
By far.
The electric chair. That's another popular one. Here's an old school.
This is actually the first electric chair as it was invented and proposed. This appeared in newspapers as an example of the new method of execution that was going to be used.
This is going to be great, guys. What is this? Where's this at?
That is the electric chair at New Mexico State Prison.
Okay.
One thing you notice about a lot of the executions as it gets more into contemporary times is how detached it seems. Like, we just flip a switch and you die. It's not necessarily I'm killing you, it's this is killing you.
So the electric chair originated in the United States. Another one we invented. Thanks, good on us.
Yep.
Condemned prisoner is strapped to a specifically built wooden chair and electrocuted through electrodes fastened on the head and leg. It was invented in 1881 by a Buffalo, New York dentist named Alfred P. Southwick. It was once again, it's a humane alternative to hanging.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure I'd rather be hanged.
Knowing that if your neck doesn't break, you've only got between 6 and 20 seconds of consciousness left before you just lapse into unconsciousness and are effectively dead. Yeah. Because once again, this method of execution is riddled with examples of people who weren't killed by the initial jolt, who suffered greatly, who had to be shocked multiple times.
I just love the idea that there can be humane way. This is a humane way to kill you. It's like, how about not killing criminals like that? How about not killing them?
Or a bullet to the head. You know what I mean? Like TJ said.
I mean, like, if you're gonna kill people, which I don't think you should do, but if you're gonna do it, like when they kill cows at a slaughterhouse, we've all seen that thing in No Country for Old Men that just
boom
fires a little pin into your head and then retracts the pin back and do that. Yep. Stick that up against my brain. Boom, you're dead. Instant. Boom, dead.
Yeah, I mean, you can even have a fucking machine that just does it at random intervals.
Yep.
You don't even have to let me know. Just do it while I'm sleeping one night.
No, boom, dead.
Just don't wake. I just don't wake up the next day. Whatever.
Well, it's about punishment, though. That's really obviously
sure.
That's the cultural idea. Is you did something wrong, so now you're being punished.
And this is a creepy looking one. Where is this?
This is a gas chamber.
Yeah.
I forget.
Oh, it's a gas chamber,
and it's not being used currently. But the gas chambers like this are still up and running.
Crazy. I don't think we have an article for the gas chamber, but
I think I pulled one, but you might have missed it. It's no big deal. I mean, we
whatever.
can cover these. I mean, the idea behind this one is cyanide gas. So you're thrown into a room, oxygen is pumped out, so you get woozy, and cyanide gas is pumped in. And then once you're dead, the room is obviously flushed of cyanide gas, and your body is taken out. So
cool.
Another pretty painful way. Once again, the idea of this was that you pass out and then you're slowly poisoned, but that doesn't always work. People have been awake as they started to die from the cyanide poisoning, suffered greatly, screamed, yelled. So there's a reason why this one's not really super common anymore.
This is a firing squad execution. Execution by firing squad, in the past sometimes called fusillading.
Yep.
From the French fusil, which means rifle. It's a method of capital punishment, particularly common in the military and in times of war. I mean, because you have all the materials to do it right there on your person. Execution by shooting is a fairly old practice. Some reasons for its use are that firearms are usually readily available, and a gunshot to a vital organ usually kills relatively quickly.
This is a really crazy picture, too. If you really look at what's going on in it, It's a shot that was taken just after the bullets were fired, so you can see the dirt being kicked up by the bullets that have passed through the men's bodies, but it was taken before they fell. Right.
Fallen yet.
So you can see the one on the extreme right, our right, is doubled over in pain, obviously having just taken a bullet through the midsection. But none of them have fallen yet, so it's a really incredible. I mean, it's ugly, but it's an incredible piece of photography.
Something that's timed perfectly.
Yep. There's another picture as well that's kind of similar. That's a very, very. This is not it, but this is another example of it. This one really is the example of firing squad as it was used in even more modern times. The idea behind the firing squad is you use rank and file cadets, and people like that might have misgivings about killing a blindfolded, helpless man. So you don't tell them whose rifle is loaded. You put blanks in all of the rifles except for 1 or 2. And then you have all of the guys line up. They don't know whether they've got the real bullet. They all take aim. They all fire at the moment that it's called. And so none of the men have to walk away feeling guilty, as if they were the ones that... There's always that ambiguity. Like, I had a blank.
Yeah. Also, like I said, it's trying to remove... It's trying to make it more dispassionate. It's like, look, you're not just killing a guy who a fucking sitting duck here. You might not have been the guy to kill him. Someone killed him. Who knows who did it?
Right. And it wasn't always done that way. Sometimes all of the rifles were
loaded.
Loaded. Sometimes only one. Sometimes several. You know what I mean? But it was always so that the people that did it could walk away with a sense of, at least it wasn't. It probably wasn't me.
Yeah.
It wasn't me that did the killing. I just aimed and fired a blank, and I don't have to carry the weight of that around with me. There's another famous picture that I didn't pull here of a Vietnamese man being executed with a shot to the head, and it's another one of those.
Is that the one that I hung up in your bedroom?
Yes.
When you came to visit.
Probably too graphic for the.
Yeah, I didn't want to risk us getting pulled for it, but it shows the moment that the trigger is pulled and enters his brain, and it's that frame. It's one of the most haunting pictures you'll ever really get to look at.
So we've gone through plenty of methods of execution. Let's talk about the politics of the death penalty for a little bit. So this is our country here, United States of America. The red is states where the death penalty is a thing. The blue is states that don't have the death penalty. Is that right?
Yes.
Correct.
I'm surprised Alaska doesn't have the death penalty.
No, Alaska, Hawaii, New Mexico. Looks like North Dakota. I guess South Dakota has it still, though. Wisconsin...
the Dakotas
Michigan
don't agree on the death penalty. I think that's funny.
Looks like, where's that? Iowa, Illinois, West Virginia, New York.
I think it's
Maine.
30. I think it's 30 states out of the 50 that are currently, or it might be a little more than 30. It's somewhere in the 30s. I can't remember the number.
I'm not sure if that's Vermont up there. I mean, yeah, but a lot of the northeastern states, besides Pennsylvania. Damn, but most of the country you can be executed still.
Yep.
Louisiana, you can, of course, not surprising. I'm surprised by the West Coast, though. Not Portland, Oregon, Washington, and California are all death penalty states.
Yeah.
Which is kind of surprising.
I mean, there are
California,
more people...
I think, executes the most other than Texas.
Well, there are the most people on death row in California than any state in the country. There are more people sitting awaiting execution, but Texas is far and away exceeds any other state in terms of the number of executions that are carried out.
They really love killing
people. And also, by the way, the safest state.
Sure.
The safest state.
Absolutely safe.
The safest place to be.
Well, let's talk about 5 death penalty myths.
And these are not comprehensive. There are a lot of things, and maybe we can talk about some that aren't covered on this list if we think of them. But this is just a list of things that people tend to believe about the death penalty that are just factually inaccurate.
This comes from Amnesty International. It's a very...
Liberal.
Libs.
Goddamn liberal
So
cucks.
basically, if you have a brain, discard this list.
So here's a myth. The death penalty deters violent crime and makes society safer.
Of course it does not.
Here's the fact. There's no convincing evidence that the death penalty has a unique deterrent effect. More than 3 decades after abolishing the death penalty, Canada's murder rate remains over 1/3 lower than it was in 1976 when they did it.
So abolishing the death penalty actually saw like a decrease.
I don't know if there's a correlation there,
but I'm just saying.
There was no increase in crime because people are like, oh, they won't kill me anymore? Well, fuck it. I might as well murder.
Yeah, I'll just get life in prison. It's like, I mean...
A 35-year study compared murder rates between Hong Kong, where there is no death penalty, and Singapore, which has a similar size population and executed regularly. The death penalty had little impact on crime rates. So basically no impact on crime rates is what I'm hearing there. Myth. The threat of execution is an effective strategy in preventing terrorist attacks. Well, that's just outright stupid.
A lot of these terrorist attacks are suicide attacks, so they're not
terrorists don't
afraid
give
to
a
die.
shit.
Oh, yeah,
They're not
or they're
afraid of
carried
being
out
killed.
under the assumption that you will be killed during the operation.
Or the assumption that after you do it, you'll go to paradise. So it's like it's almost incentivized.
I can't wait to get my 72 virgins.
Yeah.
The prospect of execution is unlikely to act as a deterrent to people prepared to kill and injure for the sake of political or other ideology. Indeed, some officials responsible for counterterrorism have repeatedly pointed out that those who are executed can be perceived as martyrs whose memory becomes a rallying point for their ideology or organizations. Armed opposition groups have also pointed to the use of the death penalty as a justification for reprisals, thereby continuing the cycle of violence. Not to mention, a lot of these people are not afraid to die. They take that risk every time they fucking commit an attack, and sometimes they intend to die in the attack.
It's a tribe element, too. It's like, well, you killed this person in my group, so I want to kill you as revenge for that. I mean...
Yep.
So here's another myth. The death penalty is fine as long as the majority of the public supports it. Fact, history is littered with human rights violations that were supported by the majority. We just looked at some of the barbaric, hideous shit.
The tyranny of the majority.
That human beings were willing to be like, yep.
And how many of those, when we were reading about them, was it like, this person was tortured and then confessed and then was boiled or burned?
And all these times were way more violent times. The murder rate was higher. The robbery rates were higher. Every crime statistic would be way fucking higher, unless they just didn't exist. Unless the crime didn't exist, I guarantee you 500 years ago when they were crushing people to death, people were way more violent. That's what people knew. That's why that's why these punishments were a reflection of the cultural state of people at that time. It's like, you stole something, cut off his hand. That's going to chill you. It's these very draconian, very brutal punishments because that's what people know, and that's what they want to see. That's a reflection of that society.
Here's another myth. All the people who have been executed have been proven guilty of serious crimes.
I mean, we read that.
What a joke, dude.
Around the world, hundreds of prisoners are executed after grossly unfair trials. This can include the use of confessions extracted under torture,
no evidence,
the denial of access to lawyers, or inadequate legal representation. The countries that execute the most are also the ones where serious concerns exist about the fairness of the justice system, such as in China, Iran, and Iraq. The 144 exonerations, they don't list it, but that's another one. The 144 exonerations of death row prisoners recorded in the USA since 1973. So we've exonerated 144 people on death row in our country since 1973. These are people who are sentenced to death, and then later it was discovered they're not guilty.
This is the fucking price you pay to have the death penalty, is how many people who are innocent have been executed or were going to be executed. If it wasn't for DNA, if it wasn't for science and technology, would have just been killed.
Well, that's what kills it for me. And I think we've got... Is there one more little myth?
There is.
Okay, let's get through that.
Myth. Relatives of murder victims demand capital punishment. I mean, sometimes they do. The worldwide anti-death penalty movement includes many who have lost their loved ones to or have themselves been victims of violent crime, but for ethical or religious reasons, I like how they make a distinction between those two things, do not want the death penalty imposed in their name. In the USA, organizations such as Murder Victims' Families for Human Rights are driving the movement to abolish the death penalty, for example, in New Hampshire. And also... Here's something that cuts more to the heart of it to me. I don't care if the families of murder victims want the killer killed. Of course they do.
Why does their opinion on whether this person should live or die have any more
What does
weight
this
than
emotionally
mine?
Compromised person
Exactly.
think?
It's just like another myth that isn't listed here that's a really big one that you hear all the time in pro-death penalty arguments is that it's cheaper to kill people than it is to house them for the rest of their lives. Like, if these people raped a bunch of babies and killed a bunch of kids in a school shooting or whatever, why are we going to pay to keep them alive their entire life? Just shoot them. Just get rid of them. And you know what? That might be true that it's cheaper to do that in some of these other countries we've mentioned where the justice system isn't really a thing or it isn't as developed as ours. But when somebody's sentenced to death in this country, there are multiple redundant federal appeals that have to be gone through. And these people are given legal representation.
Just get rid of
There's
that damn
court-
appeals.
There's court. Yeah, see, that's the thing. But the reason we don't get rid of those appeals is the next and last thing on our list that I pulled, which is
look
a
at
list
this.
of people that were likely executed falsely, that have been posthumously exonerated, or
There you go.
their convictions have been called into question. This is a list of people that more than likely were killed
One of
for
them this
crimes
year.
they did not commit. One this year.
And I mean, the whole concept of justice is supposed to be blind. It's not supposed to be vindictive. It's not supposed to be based on emotion. It's supposed to be based on, this is the letter of the law. We want laws to protect our society, to keep people safe.
So I want people to really think about the horror of this.
I want to see about this guy that was just executed this year that was
Sure.
likely innocent. Let's see. Where is he?
Right there.
No, that's 2015.
2015.
I mean, another element
Here we go.
is like lynchings, dude. Is when they lynch people. I mean, it's like, oh, you whistled at a white woman, so now you have to be killed by an angry mob. You know what I
Right.
mean? There's so many elements to why the death penalty doesn't make sense, or frontier justice, or mob justice, or the state sanctioning this penalty does not make any fucking sense.
Yep.
All right.
At all.
So this is the guy here. Georgia executed Carlton Michael Gary on March 15th, 2018, without any federal court review of substantial evidence suggesting he did not commit the crimes for which he was convicted and sentenced to death. Prosecutors argued that in the late 1970s, a single serial rapist and murderer killed 3 elderly white women and burglarized and raped a half dozen others with a signature style that led the media to salaciously dub him the Stocking Strangler. But if, as the prosecution insisted, a single person committed these murders, evidence that was never presented to the jury and never considered by any federal court suggests that it couldn't have been Carlton Gary. Although Gary was charged with 3 rapes and murders, the prosecution presented evidence of other uncharged crimes under the theory that they had all been committed by the same person. The most damning of all the evidence was the eyewitness testimony of a surviving victim who dramatically identified Gary as the person who had raped her and tied a stocking around her neck. However, a police statement withheld from the defense indicated that the witness had initially told investigators that she had been asleep and her bedroom dark at the time of the assault, and she could not describe, let alone identify, her attacker.
So here's an example.
Post-conviction DNA testing of semen stains on the victim's bed clothing excluded Gary.
See? This is an example of
This
law
guy was killed
enforcement-
this year.
Yeah, this year.
This year.
This is what I'm talking about, dude. This was an example of law enforcement coming up with a theory about the crimes and making somebody fit it, and legal jockeying to not allow new evidence to come to light, and they just killed him. They just killed him. Think about the horror of that. Think about somebody in your family being implicated in a crime. Think about yourself being implicated in a crime that you didn't commit, being lifted out of your life by the state, put on death row, and killed for something you had nothing to do with. The rest of that list, if you go down farther, is people who were likely innocent but died on death row awaiting their execution.
Oops. Sorry.
This is fucked. This doesn't work. Okay? Like, we cannot continue to trust an imperfect system when people's actual lives are on the line. This is different from putting somebody in prison where there's an opportunity for them to be exonerated. All right? That's already bad enough, an innocent man rotting in a jail cell. But taking that innocent man and strapping him to a table and putting lethal chemicals in his body, or gassing him to death, or boiling him to death when he did nothing wrong, that's not justice. That's murder.
Humans are too fallible, dude.
I think it's funny
too
that
fucking
our
emotional.
society... Go ahead, Scotty.
We're too emotional. We're too fallible. We're too likely to make mistakes. We're too likely to lie. You know, a lot of times, just the police going, well, this guy seems as good as any to pin this shit on. Because a lot of times you see the the prosecution withheld evidence. They lied. They fucking admitted statements. They didn't tell them this. They didn't do this. There's no way this guy could have done this.
They extracted a shitty false confession.
There's so many fucking instances of this happening.
There's a great documentary called The Thin Blue Line about it's an Errol Morris documentary, one of the most brilliant documentaries ever made, about a guy named Randall Patrick McMurphy. No, that's the name of the guy in fucking One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Never mind. Yeah, I can't remember what his name is. It's Randall something. Randall Dale Adams. That's what it was.
Okay.
And he was convicted of killing a police officer in cold blood and put on death row in Texas, and was exonerated by the documentary because the evidence was so crazily pointed towards another person, and so crazily the evidence that had come to light after the trial, so crazily exonerated Dale Adams that the movie being released caused him to be released. So had Errol Morris not stumbled upon this case with all this weird irregularity and made a movie about it, he'd be dead now.
Yeah.
Or at least on death row.
No, he was in Texas. He'd be dead now.
He was in Texas. Okay, yeah, he'd be dead. They have a fast lane.
He's alive to this day, has a family, has a life, didn't kill a police officer in Texas.
I just think it's, I mean, like, you know, I think that there's no way you could ever have a perfect justice system. But, I mean, even if you could 100% incontrovertibly prove this guy is a heinous, evil piece of shit who's done some of the most disgusting,
do we prevent their crimes?
Acts.
Do we after the fact prevent the crimes by killing this person? Do we stop? Can we go back in time and
I don't
say,
believe in turning. I don't believe in the state having the right to kill people. I don't believe in the state having the right to. I mean, like, look, if the cops have to shoot someone because there's a hostage situation and it's like we got to take this guy out or something, that's one thing. But to coldly and dispassionately, like, we've already neutralized the threat, but let's kill anyway. Let's make the decision to use violence and to use deprivation of life, which is probably the reason that person is there in the first place. Let's hypocritically destroy them out of some misguided attempt to turn our justice system into a system of retribution
and revenge.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I just don't
Well,
buy
it's
it.
also-
And I honestly think, you know, that for some crimes there is no sufficient punishment, but there is it's a more sufficient punishment to say that you're just going to be locked up for the rest of your existence than it is to say, well, we're going to kill you.
It's imperfect, but at the very least it gives you the option to live and for new evidence to come to light and for you to be exonerated for your crime. When they lop your fucking head off, put you in the gas chamber,
That's done.
electrocute you to death, there's really no point. You might be exonerated posthumously, but it's like, or posthumously, but it's not. That doesn't matter to you. Your life is over.
Well, it's also just an ancient way of thinking about it. It's an archaic way. It's it's the eye for an eye.
We showed that tonight.
Yeah.
How far back this goes and how imperfect it is and how liberally it was
I'm
applied.
hearing that Randall Adams is actually dead as of 2010.
Okay, well, I didn't know that. I hadn't heard about
Right,
Randall
of
Adams.
natural causes. So.
Right, natural. That's what. Okay, so
That's
thank
fine.
you for the correction.
We're
I
not
hadn't
worried
heard
about
that
it.
he
Hey,
passed.
if he died, he died, but he didn't die.
He didn't die in prison.
Yeah, in prison.
He didn't
Where he didn't
die
belong.
being hooked up to an electric chair
And how
for
many
killing
years
a cop.
How many years did he spend in prison?
I don't remember exactly, but it was more years than he should have. Let's put it that way.
It's crazy to me that this is even still a thing in our country.
This year. Happened this year.
Yeah, I mean, an innocent person executed this year with an eyewitness who was in a dark room who couldn't possibly have seen her attacker, with DNA evidence contradicting the state's case, and no one would listen to the appeal. The courts ignored the evidence that this guy wasn't guilty and just went ahead and executed him. That's just murder by the state.
They liked the fact the case was resolved.
Yep. Because it's better to have a case. That's why Randall Dale Adams was railroaded. Because it was a cop that was killed, and the cops were like, "We got to catch our man."
Yeah, and they don't want the fucking and the thing they hate the most, the government does not want, is to be seen as making mistakes in these type of cases. So it's like, oh no, he killed them. Nope, that's it. There's all this evidence. No, he killed them. That's what happened. They don't actually want to do the work and find the person that did kill them, or admit they just don't know what happened. They want to say, this person did it, kill them.
Yep. And it's just an example of something, too, in reading about these old execution methods and how wonky the system of justice was that carried them out. It's an example of the double standard that still exists in society. The double standard is, it's okay to send violence down from the top of the hierarchy. But if you ever try or even are suspected of trying to send violence back up that chain, if you're in the lower parts of society and you do something against the people in power, that's when they kill you. That's the highest of treasons, is sending political violence from the low back up the chain to the powerful. And you see it over and over again. That's why Randall Dale Adams was gaffled up. because he was accused of shooting a boy in blue, sending violence back up the chain, even though he didn't do it.
Yeah, the fucking peasants
look, one of
going,
the
you know
most-
what, these taxes are too high, we have no food to eat. Nope.
Oftentimes, the most brutal punishments throughout history, too, were reserved for people who questioned the king.
Yep.
Question
Wrong and
authority.
quartering was one of those.
Oh, you
Yeah.
question authority? Now you must die the severest of deaths.
Treason, questioning the king, undermining the king, or whatever the ruler
The
is.
system was more honest about it back then. Like, the biggest crime is not killing one of your peers. The biggest crime is doing anything against those who are above you, who are your natural superiors.
Yep.
Anyway, we've been talking for quite a while. Want to let you guys know, remember, once again, in case you weren't here the first time we announced it, that we are doing a DFF annual. We probably not, I mean, probably
It's
more
our
than
first.
annual. It's our first big meetup.
Inaugural.
In our inaugural DFF meetup in Los Angeles.
Meetup
in July,
live show.
Late July.
Stay tuned for dates and ticketing on that shit.
We will be releasing more information as becomes available to us and as we, square away things with our venue and stuff.
If you're outside of the area of Los Angeles, the sooner you get your tickets, so when we announce dates and stuff, when we got all that firmed up for you guys, it's going to be way cheaper. It's going to be way cheaper for you
Way
for you to buy your plane tickets or secure your transit and your lodging and shit a couple of months ahead of time than it is to wait till the last minute. So, just be ready. And I don't miss this, man. If you've got, some vacation time to take this summer, this is going to be kick-ass. And you're in L.A., too. So it's not like we're the only thing to do in L.A.
And
right.
we did a meetup with the drunken peasants. That was a Friday. This is actually going to be we're securing a weekend date. It's going to be at a better time, so it's going to be a good.
It's going to be awesome. A musical show. Marshall motherfucking Manson's going to melt your faces. We're going to do a live show in front of you. We're going to get drunk. We're going to get debaucherous. And the people that are there are going to be in an elite club of people that got to do it. So thank you guys for being patrons. We'll see you next time, yeah?
See you next time.
By the way,
quiz.
you both are sentenced to death.
Oh,
Shit.
yeah. All of you are sentenced to death. Everyone here. All